Good afternoon, everyone. Looks like I have seen some of you today, so this is a day where we will all be very well versed in our FY 2020 budget. But I certainly want to thank you for coming out. We are excited to present our first budget of this administration, and it is our, again, FY 2020 budget. I want to begin by thanking the Office of Management and Budget. I think they have done a truly wonderful job in helping us to put together a budget that reflects the priorities not only of this administration, but we believe it also reflects the priorities of this community. Stanley Early is here, and I certainly want Stanley, would you stand up, please, so everyone can see? I want to thank Stanley Early and the budget team for the amazing job they did. Also want to thank our Chief Administrative Officer, Major Riddick. If you can please stand up as well. And the others who have helped us to put together a truly amazing budget here. So I will get right into it by beginning on we have the first slide that will come up. And the first slide is our vision. And the vision that we have articulated over and over again is that we are excited about the pride that we are developing in Prince George's County. And so the vision statement has 4 important words, including experience, innovation is one, collaboration, and solutions. And so the vision statement will read very plainly: to attract and retain the most experienced workforce who will use innovative technology to provide efficient, effective services to our citizens. We will collaborate with key stakeholders to develop database solutions that use best practices to address complex challenges within the county and the region, ensuring that we will have a world-class education system, safe communities, and a robust economy that creates jobs and opportunities for all and increases the commercial tax base to ensure we can provide the services our residents deserve. And so that is the vision. And if you move to the second slide, you'll see the priorities of our administration, which first of all, and I want to thank Teresa Dudley, who is here from the Educators Association, who has urged us to remember the babies. And we have remembered the babies first and foremost and put their education first. And so education investments, reform is our first priority. Also crime reduction and maintaining the successes that we've had over the years. Chief Stawinski is here. I want to thank him. And other members of our public safety team who have done a phenomenal job in driving down crime over the last 8 years in ways that have been unmatched, not only in our state, but unmatched around the country, with a 50% reduction in crime over the last 8 years. And so we certainly view that as a priority. Smart economic development. You will see in this budget that economic development revolves a lot around revitalization. In other words, it is our belief that it is unnecessary to build new on every space of land, but that we want to make proper investments in existing communities and to also develop businesses that are beneficial to our residents. Quality of life and the environment, you're going to hear some exciting things that are happening there. Transportation and infrastructure, some investments that were necessary to be made, you'll hear about that. Youth development is an area that we have not seen in recent years as a budget priority, but we certainly believe that it is necessary. And we are, as a matter of fact, I am just coming from Annapolis, where I went to testify on some legislation around our new youth sports initiative. Dr. Golson is here, and I want to thank her and the school system for working with us collaboratively in that effort. And then proficient and transparent government is also extremely important to this administration, and so our budget will reflect some of the investments we've made in that regard. If we go to the second, I guess now the third slide, the next slide, you'll see the projected deficits from 2013 through FY 2020, and what you will notice is that we started this budget was a struggle for, it was a challenge, and the challenge is that we started with a $48 million deficit. You will notice from 2013, the previous administration did an amazing job of causing those deficits to decline or driving them down from $125 million in FY 2013. FY 2014, you'll see it grew actually because there's some fluctuation to $152 million. You keep moving to 111, 117 million. By 2017, down to 64 million. $4 million in 2018, and $9.5 million in FY 2019. And so what we want to point out here is that you notice that we saw some growth in a way that we would not like to. The deficit actually grew to $48 million. And what that signals for us is that we have to make important decisions going forward to ensure that our deficits are actually going down and not up, and that we're anticipating that next year we could have another difficult year. So we want to make sure that we make the proper decisions. And our next slide. The next slide will give you the operating fund summary for fiscal year 2020, and it will show you that we have $4.21 billion in operating funds. Those are the revenues of our county that include a combination of general fund dollars at about $3.5 billion and combined with our grant funding. You will see that our budget grew, that our revenues grew by 2.6% over 2019's budget, an increase of $106.3 million. And you'll see that the general fund portion of that grew by 3%. You'll see here to the side, the general fund is at $3.5 billion. You'll see also the internal service funds, the enterprise funds, which are in some trouble, the special revenue funds, the grant program funds for a combined $4.2 billion. And so this is our operating fund summary. Go to the next slide. And on the next slide, you'll see that our revenues have actually been growing quite appropriately from 2016 to 2020. And we, through the investments that we are making in our, especially in the area of economic development, expect to see those revenues continue to grow. That's the objective. If we go to the next slide. And this gives you, this next slide will tell you some of the breakdown in terms of where those revenues have come from. And a couple of notes I want to make here is that you will notice that that our property taxes overall are at 26.7% of our revenues. You'll see income taxes and some aid, outside aid for the Board of Education. But what is significant about this particular slide is that you've heard us speak over and over again about the need to increase commercial property taxes, that we have relied, in our estimation, too heavily on residential property taxes, which we believe really has hurt our economy and made us rely and actually burden citizens to some extent to pay for the goods and services that we need as a county. So we are very, very optimistic about the investments we've made to see that particular area grow, but in particular in the area of commercial property taxes. And we believe, again, that those investments we're making are really, really important. You'll notice, if we go to the next slide, that our resources, we believe, are invested appropriately, so that nearly 60% of our expenditures go to the Board of Education and go to education. You'll see that we've made about a 22% investment in public safety. And again, so nearly 82% of our revenues go to education and public safety, and this is in line with our values and our priorities. And you'll see, for example, in public safety, as I've mentioned, we have had great success in public safety. We expect to have the same success in the area of education, and you'll see that the other areas around it, the challenge is that the pie needs to grow, that we don't have nearly enough to cover. We have so many priorities in our county. It is not just education and public safety, but the quality of life for people who reside in our county, who care about beautification, who want a county that is clean and thriving. Human services is one of the areas that we are concerned about, making sure that we make proper investments in mental health care and in substance abuse treatment, and in workforce development. There's so many areas that we still need resources, and so we are challenged here, but again, we have a plan. So if we go to the next slide, you'll see our investments in education, again, reflect the priority, and you'll see that those investments continue to grow. And what I can tell you about this budget is that we are at a great time to discuss education, as we have spent since January a lot of effort in Annapolis, ensuring that we bring back to Prince George's County all the resources that our children deserve. And what we understand is that we feel no shame in going to Annapolis, and we have been very aggressive and unapologetic in our request for additional construction funding and operational funding. And that is because we understand well that the first obligation of government is to educate children. That is, by Constitution, the Maryland State Constitution indicates that the first priority of state government is education. And so in addition to what we will see, and you can go to the next slide, in education, we expect after April, and the session is still going on, and so we don't know yet what the final numbers will be. And so I see Stanley looking at me, so to say be cautious. But what I can tell you is that we expect really to see some super funding, so to speak, in terms of construction dollars that will come from Annapolis, including a really innovative P3 plan we've put forward in our legislation that allows us to receive from the state a $30 million, somewhere between $25 and $30 million every year for the next 30 years, above what our usual allotment is from the state, to help us maintain this P3 model that we put forward to build schools in a very innovative way, where we will have a separate entity that will build and finance and maintain, most importantly, the structures that we build. And we believe that this particular model will allow us to build in the neighborhood of 18 schools over the next 7 years. And so this is a very aggressive plan. And again, the thing that's so smart about it, and again, I want to really thank Dr. Golson and Stanley and the budget team and the others who have helped us to work on this model. We expect that we will save in the neighborhood of $180 million over the life of this plan in maintenance costs, because maintenance costs are generally what handicap us, from HVAC systems that fail and other items that fail, and the cost of those repairs go up every year. And so our innovative P3 plan, we believe, will help us to maintain those schools over the long haul, and will add to our construction dollars. In addition to the dollars that we are seeking for capital projects, we're also excited about the Kirwan Commission. As you've heard a lot of talk about the Kirwan formula that will decide operational dollars for the school system that are desperately needed to pay teachers' salaries, to invest in pre-K education, to also reduce class sizes, to deal with the large number of disabled students who we have in Prince George's County. The large number, we educate the largest number of disabled students in the state. We also educate the largest number of students who speak English as a second language. And we also educate a large number of students who are on free and reduced lunch, about 62% of our students. And so we have a large population of students who have needs that must be met. And the Kirwan funding is the funding that we will rely on to help us to change some of the operational needs that we have. And so we are understanding that there will be a down payment, so to speak, this year made in Kirwan. We don't yet know what that dollar amount will be, but we certainly look forward to being able to invest it for our kids, and we're understanding that we will have a larger share come next year. If we go to the next slide, we've already talked about the fact that we have increased this year. This budget represents a $45 million increase over the FY 2019 budget. And we believe that it is significant that we have really been fortunate to be able to not only meet maintenance of effort, but we have exceeded maintenance of effort. And we don't take this for granted, because we understand that in these times it's not easy, and even some of our neighbors struggle at times to meet maintenance of effort. So we're really grateful that we have funded our school system even above. We've exceeded maintenance of effort. If we go to the next slide. The community colleges will reflect some of the additional investments we've made in education, including the community college, where we saw an increase of 6.5% over last year's budget, in the neighborhood of $7.6 million for a really successful expanded program for high school college credits. We also were happy, and we heard that this was very well received, an increase for the Memorial Library System of 3.9%. And this increase is geared toward not only providing compensation adjustments, as you will see, for employees and technology and infrastructure, but we're really pleased as well that we are able to continue the Books from Birth program to promote and encourage early reading in children under the age of 5. This is a critical piece for us, because what we recognize is that parents are their children's first teachers. And we want to make sure that parents across our county have the resources they need to teach their children good habits, to teach them the skills of reading early, teach them increased vocabulary, and all of the things that will be necessary for them to come to our school system prepared to learn. And so we believe that that investment will get us in that direction. The next slide. The next slide is public safety. And what we say about this budget will reflect in terms of public safety is that we maintained in large part the investments that we have made in public safety. This was not the year that we made tremendous increases in public safety. But we do want to maintain the quality of public safety that we have been able to provide to our communities and to make the investments that are necessary to do that. In the police department, that means 5 new police classes in FY 2020 with 100 new recruits. In fire and EMS, we provided for 2 new fire and EMS classes with 48 new recruits. We also are funding career and volunteer recruitment as well as 300 sets of gear for volunteers and deployment software. Next slide. You'll notice that our sheriff and corrections, they're deputy sheriffs to provide additional security and safety, especially at the courthouse complex, as well as corrections with 2 new correctional officer classes with 60 new officers will be in this budget. Next slide. The state's attorney's office, we provided increased funding for translation services, which was needed, a necessary increase, and then the funding for planned salary increases. We have made substantial investments in the state's attorney's office over the last several years, which have allowed us really to do more than a third increase in salaries to bring our office in line with neighboring jurisdictions. And so this budget also reflects a continuation of planned funding for salary increases for prosecutors and other staff in the state's attorney's office. And the Homeland Security budget reflects an increase for public safety data storage for our body cameras. Next slide, please. Health and Human Services. This slide, what you should know about this is that we unfortunately experienced some cut in our grant funding. And this required us to use some of our general fund funding to backfill so that we would not lose the services of 3 public health nurses to replace TB nurses, tuberculosis nurses, as well as 2 new positions in the Department of Social Services for new expanded T&I, Transforming Neighborhoods Initiative schools, as well as 1 additional administrative support person in family services for general administration. Next slide. Quality of life and environment. Now this one is really fun to talk about for a couple of reasons. The bike share program is exciting, but I have to tell you, for anyone who has traveled anywhere in Prince George's County over the last year or 2, you will know that a topic of great conversation is around 2-day-a-week trash. If you visit the 7-Eleven like I do on most days to get my cup of coffee, or the Wegmans, or even the local gas station, I am stopped regularly to ask what I intend to do to return us to 2-day-a-week trash. It's been explained to me that Marylanders, as we know, and in particular Prince Georgians, love to eat crabs. And what they tell me is that when they enjoy their barbecue and their crabs on the weekend, well, then they encounter a problem come Monday because they put their trash out and it stays in the trash all week long in many cases and has to be picked up the next weekend. I've been nearly threatened about this particular issue, that if I don't bring resolution to it quickly, I would be run out of Prince George's County. Well, I want to thank Joe Gill in the Department of the Environment that I can remain at home because I think we now have a smart solution to our need to return to 2-day-a-week trash collection. It will be phased in. That's an important phrase that I have to tell you, is that it will be phased in because I think some of the difficulty we experienced with going from 2-day-a-week to 1-day-a-week was that it was done very suddenly and in a way that really didn't allow us the rollout that we wanted. And so in this case, we will be looking at a phased-in approach. And the second day of trash collection will only include food waste collection. That's what's significant about the second day. Will only include food waste collection on the same day that we collect yard waste. And this is so smart because we already have the contracts in place. It does not come with any additional cost except for the $200,000 for the food containers. And I really want this to be reported, is not only are we returning to 2-day-a-week trash, but because we'll be composting with the food waste that we collect, guess what? We're actually earning money. So please remember to tell our residents that we want them to know that we are not only listening to them and hearing that they wanted the 2-day-a-week return, but that we are actually going to make some money and to do what is environmentally responsible. We have 12 newly funded positions also in the Department of Environment to enhance bulky trash pickup. This is because our effort around beautification is not just to return to 2-day-a-week trash, but to make sure that we have a comprehensive program. And bulky trash is one of the areas that we thought we needed some investment to make sure that we have not only the personnel, but there were also investments made in a vehicle, because our vehicles were in great disrepair. So we've also just really invested in that area. Next slide. Youth development. Everyone who knows me, and I think most of the folks who are in this administration, we are wild about kids. And so youth development, we right away decided that one of the areas we could have some impact was through our summer youth enrichment program. It's important that we note it is an enrichment program. This is not simply a jobs program. We do provide jobs to our children over the summer. We have grown that program. We doubled it in our first summer from 3,000 to 6,000 youth right away. And we have also expanded the age of youth that we service. We now include children between the ages of 14 and 22, which we think was very important. And we're looking forward to even growing that number. And Sean Stokes from the Office of Human Resource Management is going to grab her chest at the moment and say, this lady is taking us too fast and too far because we expanded the age, we increased the numbers. But the enrichment portion of it is really important to us because we want to make sure we leave our kids better than we find them. This is not warehousing kids for the summer or babysitting kids for the summer. Instead, we have a whole comprehensive training program that begins with a capstone, really innovative capstone program at 14, where we do things such as teach our children about energy and also to teach them skills that they will need to develop the workforce as we go along. And so this is also an award-winning program. We won an award from the National Association of Counties because of the excellence of this program. And so we are really excited that we were able to expand it, but this came also as one of the areas that we made an investment. Next slide. Proficient and transparent government. This is also an area that we thought was really important to make an investment this summer, an appropriate investment. One of the themes we heard over and over again as we reviewed our agencies as a new administration was the need to really modernize government, to make sure that our technology met the times, that we had adequate staff to perform the services that our residents need. And we thought that we would do that by funding, first of all, 15 new positions in the Department of Permitting and Inspections. So Melinda Bowling and her team are working really hard to ensure that we are not only increasing our business-friendly climate, but that we are also responding to some of the code enforcement issues that were brought to our attention that our residents were very concerned about, making sure that we had the well-trained staff to perform those tasks. In addition to that, the $4.6 million that you will see there for technology improvements is much the same. I don't know whether Jonathan Butler from the Office of Central Services is here, but I've been quoting him, and he will probably ask me not to tell the secret anymore, that he came into his budget review and said, well, it seems to me when I walked in, it was like 1985 is what he assumed when he took over his agency, because we were just a tad behind in technology. So hopefully Jonathan, I'm sure, is satisfied that we now have e-procurement. We put the down payment of that $200,000 to get that going. And to also make sure that we're making investments in the Office of Human Resource Management, where we were actually using triplicate forms, as it turns out, to evaluate our employees, which means I get my copy, you get your copy, and there's a copy that goes in the file. Well, it turns out that's not the way we do this anymore in 2019. They have technology for us to evaluate and to hire and to do all other manner of tasks. And so the $500,000 system improvement at OHRM will help us to improve hiring and employee management and to help us to deal with some of the agencies that really are short-staffed and have taken, in some instances, up to 6 months to hire. We believe that we can certainly do that quicker and more efficiently, and so that investment is there. We go to the next slide. So I think we are pretty much at the end of our presentation. This is the capital improvement program. It just shows you some of the expenditures for the various agencies and by percentage. But I want to thank you all again for coming today to hear us to talk about our budget. Again, we are very pleased and believe that this budget does reflect the priorities, again, not only of this administration, but it also reflects the priorities of our community. One area that I did not mention and I meant to talk about was our excitement about some of the legislation that we have in Annapolis that will allow us additional investments inside the Beltway. This means, for example, we have requested funding that would allow us to eliminate some of the abandoned and vacant homes that we have in the inner Beltway areas. It will allow us also to address the food desert issue that has been of grave concern to us and to so many of our residents, and allows us as well to deal with some of the strip malls, to make investments in some of the malls that will reflect going forward a revitalized effort to provide the goods and services and food that benefit citizens in their neighborhoods. We want people working, playing, and worshiping, and everything here in Prince George's, getting their medical care, all in Prince George's County. And so we also, you will see an additional focus on revitalizing our communities. And so if there are any questions, I would love to answer the questions, but again, want to thank you and say to you all, and we don't say this by way of bragging, but we still are the crown jewel of Maryland. We believe with these increased investments that we have made, Prince George's County will continue to stand strong. I am so proud, and I have to just really emphasize that we're at the group of folks that we have assembled, the professionals who drive this government every day, who are not only experienced, but are caring. And that is an important attribute. These are not only experienced professionals, but they are deeply caring. And so we are excited about the services that we will produce and provide to our citizens. So if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them at this time. Yes.
Hi, my name is Rachel Michelle. I work for the Louisville News. I was wondering if you can tell me about the parts of the Board of Education's budget that you didn't fund and sort of how you prioritize education.
So education funding is our top priority. And we actually did, what I was explaining is that each year there's something called maintenance of effort. And we actually exceeded maintenance of effort. So we did fund the school system, and we funded, in fact, $45 million more than we did last year. What I can tell you is that we understand that the needs of our school system are great, which is why we are in Annapolis, along with Dr. Goldston and the entire team, making sure that we are bringing back additional funding to help us to meet some of the needs we have. One of the areas that you may have in mind is psychological services. And what I can tell you is that our team is working as we speak. I was there in Annapolis today to seek out additional areas of funding to help us supplement some of what we were not able to accomplish in our budget. We expect to see that in the down payment on Kerwin that I was talking about, that we know that we will get. We don't know what the dollar amount is yet. Those details are still being worked out. But what we expect is when we are able to bring home some additional dollars after April, those will help us in some of the additional areas that the board was interested in, and we are too. Making sure that mental health treatment, that we have additional dollars for teacher salaries, that we have additional dollars to try to bring down some of the class sizes. So that's how we intend to satisfy some of the additional needs that we have. Yes, sir.
Some of the, in a lot of jurisdictions across the country, trash pickup has been something that people have come to have to pay for. Your administration has managed to not only address the concern, but find a way to draw revenue from it. Can you talk about that a little bit? Maybe some of the other jurisdictions can think about.
Well, innovation was one of the 4 words that you saw as a part of our vision. And we do want to continue to put forward practices that are innovative. And the composting idea that we have, or the composting concept of collecting food waste and composting that rather than general trash collection for 2 days is an example of how we intend to use innovation to solve some of the issues that we find.
You see the phase that as a year-long?
It'll be over a 3-year time period. We'll begin, I believe, with 3,000 homes and begin to expand it. And what that helps us to do is to learn through each phase how to better roll it out. So that we did that with the recycling when we started that in the county. But it gives us a chance to study some of the challenges that we find as we roll out each portion of it. So we'll do it in a phased-in way over a 3-year period.
Jose Amano from the Prince George's Sentinel. You had a community conversation
Thank you. So all of the community conversations are always helpful. I have to tell you that because I just spent at least 2 years listening to citizens on the campaign trail, I have to be very honest with you. We did have a good sense for what people cared about, but those community conversations, which we will never stop having, allow us to continue to check in with our residents to make sure that the things that we believe are a priority to them remain a priority. And so we will have those consistent conversations on an ongoing basis. We've already continued to have those even in the office. We've met with the mayors of all of the municipalities. So we'll continue to meet with various constituency groups, but we actually listen to what our citizens say. And some of the themes that we heard, of course, the beautification, the litter. People are telling us that they're very tired of the litter that we've seen, the illegal dumping. And so we have put in legislation, for example, to increase the fees for illegal dumping. We're also installing cameras to capture some of the illegal dumpers. We have selected various locations that will remain a secret so that people won't know that they're there. But we are responding to what we've heard about the litter and about the need to really clean up our community. And that's one of the ongoing things we've heard. But we've also heard in the budget hearing, for example, that from a number of school psychologists, that this is an area that they believe will help them to better serve our students. And so we're listening to our citizens on a real-time basis, and we're trying to make sure we implement programming that responds to their concerns. Any further questions? Yes.
The private-public partnership you talked about for school construction, does the county have any private, publicly constructed schools yet?
No. You know what? So this is a completely new way of school construction. It is innovative. What we believe is that our model will be the first of its kind in the state. And we believe that when done well, will become a model for the country. But this is something that we had a work group that Dr. Golson's been working with to study this particular model, and we believe that it is a practice that will work well for Prince George's. But it'll be the first time that it's been implemented, not only here, but in the state. Yes.
Prior to this announcement, what was the communication like with the county council about the proposed budget, and what were their thoughts when you were communicating with them?
So the first group that we actually met with this morning was the county council. So we have had a discussion regarding this budget with them, but we have also been in constant contact with the county council. They've been wonderful partners for us. We've met with each of the council members. I met with some of them over the summer. We've met with them this fall. So we've been meeting with the council. And as a matter of fact, I have a standing meeting every Monday evening with the chair of the council and the chair of our Senate and House delegation. I meet with them in Annapolis to make sure that we have ongoing conversations and I can hear about the things that council's concerned about. We met with them along with Joe Gill before we discussed publicly the idea to return to 2-day a week with the food waste. To talk with them about the idea and to see how they felt about it. They were very receptive. So communication is important to this administration. Transparency. You saw collaboration. Now, again, those four words I told you about are not just words, but we really believe we'll accomplish much more through our partnerships and relationships, and we're really maintaining ongoing communication. Any further questions? All right, thank you all so much again. Thank you.